Imagine the cool evening air in a lavish Tokyo villa, where the soft hum of the city lights filters through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across polished marble floors. But in that moment, everything shatters with a sharp slap of fabric against skin. "You filthy black animal! How dare you touch my things with those dirty hands!" The words slice through the air like a knife, spat from the lips of Yoko, the elegant Japanese wife of the household, her face twisted in contempt as she hurls a soiled napkin straight at Aisha's face. The cloth sticks for a second, damp and humiliating, before sliding down, leaving a streak of grime on Aisha's dark brown skin. The sting isn't just physical, it's the kind of burn that seeps into your soul, making your cheeks flush hot with shame and rage all at once. Aisha stands there, frozen in the kitchen, the scent of lemon cleaner mingling with the acrid taste of injustice on her tongue, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Hey there, friends. If you're tuning in today, settle in because this is one of those stories that grabs you by the heart and doesn't let go. It's about Aisha, a young woman from Nigeria who's found herself halfway across the world in the bustling heart of Japan, facing the kind of everyday cruelty that too many people know all too well. But it's also about the quiet fire inside her, the kind that simmers and builds until it lights up the darkness. I've heard tales like this before, and they always remind me how strength isn't about shouting back. It's about holding your ground when the world tries to knock you down. Let me paint this picture for you, step by step, so you can feel it like you're right there with her. Aisha had arrived in Tokyo about 2 years ago, chasing a dream that started with a simple act of kindness from a man she'd never forget. Back in Lagos, her mother had been gravely ill, the kind of sickness that drains families dry with hospital bills stacking up like mountains. Aisha was just a teenager then, working odd jobs to scrape by, when word came that a generous stranger from Japan had covered the costs. That stranger was Hiroshi Tanaka, a wealthy businessman who'd been on a trip to Africa for some deal or another. He didn't know Aisha personally, but he'd heard her story through a mutual contact, a local charity worker, and something in it touched him. "Your mother deserves a fighting chance," he'd written in a short note attached to the funds. No strings, no expectations, just pure humanity. Aisha's mom pulled through, and from that day on, Aisha carried a debt of gratitude in her heart. When Hiroshi passed away unexpectedly a few years later, she learned his son, Kenji, had inherited the family estate in Tokyo. Feeling a pull she couldn't ignore, Aisha applied for a position as a domestic helper there, hoping to repay the kindness in some small way. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and in a city like Tokyo, where the neon signs buzz endlessly and the trains rumble like thunder, it gave her a foothold in a foreign land. The villa itself was a stunning place, nestled in the upscale neighborhood of Shibuya, where cherry blossoms lined the streets in spring, and the skyline twinkled like stars at night. Picture it. Sleek, modern architecture blended with traditional Japanese elements. A Zen garden out back with koi ponds and stone lanterns, inside rooms filled with minimalist furniture, silk screens, and the faint aroma of green tea always brewing. Kenji Tanaka, now in his mid-40s, ran a successful tech firm that dealt in AI innovations, the kind that powered smart homes across Asia. He was a kind man, much like his father, tall, with salt and pepper hair and a warm smile that crinkled his eyes. He'd greet Aisha each morning with a polite nod and a "Good morning, Aisha-san," using the honorific that made her feel seen, even if just a little. He never raised his voice, never questioned her work, and on rare occasions, he'd share a quiet conversation about her life back home, asking about Nigerian cuisine or festivals with genuine curiosity. It was those moments that kept her going, reminders that not everyone viewed her through a lens of suspicion. But then there was Yoko, Kenji's wife of 10 years, a former model who'd traded catwalks for a life of luxury. She was the picture of poise on the outside, slender, with perfectly coiffed black hair and designer outfits that screamed elegance. Yet beneath that facade lurked a sharpness, a coldness that Aisha felt from day one. It started subtly, those little glances that lingered too long on Aisha's braided hair or her deep mahogany skin, as if she were an intruder in their pristine world. Yoko would wrinkle her nose at the spices Aisha used in her own meals, muttering under her breath about strange smells invading the house. At first, Aisha brushed it off as cultural differences. After all, Tokyo was a whirlwind of customs she was still learning, from bowing etiquette to the unspoken rules of public behavior. But over time, those subtle looks turned into something more insidious, chipping away at her spirit like water on stone. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the city lights began to flicker on, Aisha was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The air was thick with the sizzle of stir-fried vegetables, the sharp tang of soy sauce mixing with the warmth of ginger. She moved with quiet efficiency, her hands, strong from years of hard work, chopping onions with rhythmic precision. Kenji was due home soon from a late meeting, and Yoko had been lounging in the living room, scrolling through her phone with that perpetual air of boredom. Aisha heard her approach, the click of high heels on the tile floor echoing like warning shots. Before she could turn, Yoko was there, snatching a glass from the counter and filling it with water, her eyes narrowing as they fixed on Aisha. "That's not how you set the table," Yoko snapped, her voice laced with irritation. It was a small thing, the placement of a napkin, but Yoko made it sound like a grave offense. Aisha paused, wiping her hands on her apron, and offered a soft apology. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll fix it right away." But Yoko wasn't done. She stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming, a cloying floral scent that made Aisha's nose twitch. "You people always think you can just waltz in and do as you please. Look at you with your wild hair and that skin. It's like you're bringing the dirt of Africa into my home." The words hung in the air, explicit and cutting, designed to wound. Aisha felt a flush creep up her neck, her fists clenching at her sides. Inside, a storm brewed, anger at the injustice, fear of losing her job, and a deep-seated hurt that echoed the stares she'd endured on Tokyo's crowded trains, where people sometimes shifted away as if her presence was a threat. She wanted to fire back, to tell Yoko that her wild hair was a crown of braids passed down from generations of strong women, that her skin was a testament to resilience under the sun. But Aisha bit her tongue, remembering her mother's words. "Dignity isn't given, child. It's what you hold on to when others try to strip it away." Instead, she straightened her back, meeting Yoko's gaze with steady eyes. "I'll make sure it's perfect next time," she said calmly, though her voice trembled just a fraction. Yoko smirked, satisfied with her small victory, and sauntered away, leaving Aisha to pick up the pieces. As the night wore on, Aisha retreated to her small room at the back of the villa, a cozy space with a single bed, a window overlooking the garden, and a few mementos from home, a photo of her mother smiling brightly, a beaded necklace from her village. She sat on the edge of the bed, the fabric of her uniform still carrying the faint stain from the napkin incident, and let the tears come quietly. It wasn't the first time Yoko had lashed out, but each barb dug deeper, reminding Aisha of her outsider status in this land of harmony and order. Japan had its beauties, the efficient subways, the polite bows, the festivals with lanterns floating on rivers, but for someone like her, it also held shadows of exclusion. She'd heard whispers from other expats, stories of being followed in stores or denied apartments because of their appearance. Yet Aisha clung to her purpose, honoring Hiroshi's memory by serving his family faithfully. The next day dawned bright, the sunlight streaming through the curtains like a promise of renewal. Aisha rose early, as always, slipping into her routine with determined grace. She dusted the shelves in the study, the room where Kenji kept his father's old books and artifacts from travels abroad. Among them was a framed photo of Hiroshi in Africa, standing beside a group of locals, his smile broad and genuine. Touching it gently, Aisha felt a pang of connection. "Thank you," she whispered, as if he could hear her. Kenji entered then, briefcase in hand, looking tired but kind. "Aisha, everything all right?" he asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. She nodded, not wanting to burden him. "Yes, sir. Just remembering good things." But that afternoon, while cleaning the master bedroom, the inciting spark ignited. The room was opulent, with silk sheets and a balcony view of the cityscape, the distant hum of traffic a constant backdrop. Aisha was vacuuming when Yoko's phone buzzed on the nightstand, left behind in her haste to meet friends for lunch. Curiosity didn't drive Aisha. She wasn't one to snoop. But as she picked it up to place it safely, the screen lit up with a message preview. "Darling, the poison arrives tomorrow. Once Kenji's out of the way, the fortune is ours." Her blood ran cold, the words blurring for a moment as shock gripped her. Poison? Fortune? Scrolling just enough to confirm, heart racing, palms sweaty, she saw exchanges with a lover detailing a plot to eliminate Kenji and claim his inheritance. Yoko's betrayal was laid bare, a web of deceit that threatened everything Hiroshi had built. Aisha's mind reeled. Fear clawed at her. What if Yoko found out she'd seen? But deeper still burned loyalty, a fierce protectiveness for the son of the man who'd saved her mother. She couldn't stand by. Slipping the phone back, she resolved to warn Kenji that evening. As the hours ticked by, tension coiled in her chest like a spring. Dinner came, the table set impeccably under the chandelier's soft glow, the aroma of miso soup filling the air. Kenji complimented the meal, but Yoko shot Aisha a subtle glare, as if sensing something amiss. When Aisha finally gathered her courage, approaching Kenji in the hallway after the meal, her voice low, "Sir, I need to speak with you. It's about your wife." Before she could finish, Yoko appeared like a shadow, her eyes flashing. "What are you doing, whispering to my husband? Get back to your duties, you meddlesome foreigner." She stepped between them, her hand shoving Aisha's shoulder lightly but firmly, a symbolic push that spoke volumes. Aisha stumbled back a step, the contact sending a jolt through her. The humiliation stung, especially with Kenji watching, confused. "Yoko, that's unnecessary," he said mildly, but Yoko waved him off. "She's overstepping, as always. These people think they own the place." Aisha retreated to the kitchen, her breath coming in short bursts, the cool counter against her palms grounding her. Inside, anger simmered alongside resolve. If subtle warnings wouldn't work, she'd have to find another way to expose the truth, even if it meant risking everything. But how? The thought lingered, unresolved as the night deepened, the city's lights mocking her isolation. She couldn't let this slide, not when so much was at stake. The days blurred into a tense routine, each one layering more weight on Aisha's shoulders. Mornings brought the ritual of brewing coffee, the rich aroma a brief comfort amid Yoko's increasingly pointed barbs. "Don't burn it this time, or is that too much for you?" Yoko would say, her tone dripping with scorn, eyes raking over Aisha as if she were a stain on the pristine counters. Aisha swallowed the retorts, focusing on her tasks, ironing Kenji's shirts with careful folds, the steam hissing like her suppressed frustration. Afternoons in the garden offered solace, where she'd tend the bonsai trees, their twisted branches mirroring her own resilience, shaped by forces beyond control. The soft rustle of leaves and distant bird calls reminded her of home, where discrimination wore different faces but hurt just the same. One particularly humid afternoon, as thunder rumbled in the distance threatening rain, Aisha overheard Yoko on the phone again, this time in the study. Hiding behind the door, her heart thudding, she caught fragments. "Yes, the vial is hidden. He'll never suspect. The will is forged." It confirmed her worst fears. Yoko wasn't just cheating. She was plotting murder for money. The realization hit like a punch, leaving Aisha dizzy. She backed away quietly, but her foot caught on a rug, causing a soft thud. Yoko whirled around, phone clutched tightly. "You! Spying on me?" Her voice rose, sharp as glass. "What did you hear, you black eavesdropper?" Aisha's pulse raced, but she held her ground. "Nothing, ma'am. I was just dusting." Lies didn't sit well with her, but survival demanded it. Yoko advanced, her face inches away, breath hot. "Liar. People like you are always scheming. If I catch you again, you'll be on the street, or worse, deported back to whatever hole you crawled from." The threat landed heavy, evoking images of Tokyo's immigration offices, cold and bureaucratic, where one wrong move could end her life here. Aisha nodded, eyes downcast, but inside, defiance flickered. She wouldn't be silenced. That evening, as rain pattered against the windows like insistent fingers, Aisha tried once more to approach Kenji. He was in his office, poring over documents under the warm desk lamp, the room scented with old leather books. "Sir, please, it's important," she began, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Kenji looked up, concern etching his features. "Aisha, you seem troubled. What's wrong?" Before she could spill the truth, Yoko burst in, a tray of tea in hand, a rare act of domesticity. "Darling, I thought you might need this," she cooed, setting it down with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Turning to Aisha, her tone shifted to ice. "Leave us. This isn't your place." Pushed aside again, Aisha lingered in the hallway, ears straining. She heard Yoko's laughter, light and false, and Kenji's murmured thanks. The exclusion burned, a reminder of her status. Always the outsider, her voice dismissed because of her skin, her accent, her everything. But as she lay in bed that night, the storm raging outside, a plan began to form. Subtlety wasn't working. She needed something bold, something to shatter Yoko's composure and force the truth into the light. The idea of confronting them directly, perhaps even using a shocking gesture to provoke a reaction, swirled in her mind. It was risky, impulsive, but necessary. If she didn't act soon, Kenji's life, and the legacy of his father's kindness, would be lost forever. The unresolved urgency kept her awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if tomorrow would bring the courage she needed. Weeks passed, each day a tightrope walk of vigilance and veiled hostility. Yoko's insults grew bolder, no longer confined to private moments. During a small gathering of Kenji's business associates in the villa's spacious living room, with jazz music playing softly and the clink of glasses, Yoko made her move. Aisha was serving appetizers, her tray balanced carefully, when Yoko accidentally bumped into her, sending sushi rolling across the floor. "Oh, clumsy girl, can't you watch where you're going with those big feet?" Yoko exclaimed, loud enough for all to hear. Whispers rippled through the guests, subtle at first, then chuckles, fingers pointing discreetly. Aisha knelt to clean up, her knees pressing into the carpet, face burning as eyes bored into her. "Typical," one guest muttered. "These foreigners don't belong in such settings." The humiliation was total, a public spectacle that left Aisha trembling. But as she rose, meeting Kenji's apologetic gaze, she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. It was a small crack, but enough to fuel her resolve. That night, alone with her thoughts, the plan solidified. She'd find a way to expose Yoko, even if it meant crossing lines she never imagined. The thought hung heavy, leading her toward the inevitable confrontation, her heart steeling for what was to come. The weight of that unresolved night pressed on Aisha like a heavy blanket, the kind that smothers rather than comforts. She tossed in her bed, the rain now a steady drum against the window, each drop echoing her racing thoughts. How could she make Kenji see the danger lurking in his own home? Yoko's shove still lingered on her shoulder, a phantom ache that fueled her determination. By morning, the storm had cleared, leaving Tokyo's streets glistening under a crisp autumn sun. But inside the villa, the air felt thicker, charged with unspoken threats. Aisha rose with the dawn, slipping into her uniform, a simple black dress that blended her into the background, just as Yoko preferred, and headed to the kitchen. The scent of fresh coffee brewing was her small ritual, a moment of normalcy before the day unraveled. Kenji was already at the breakfast table, scrolling through his tablet with furrowed brows, the soft glow illuminating his tired face. "Good morning, Aisha," he said absently, not looking up. She placed his mug down gently, her hands steady despite the turmoil inside. This was her chance, perhaps. "Sir, about last night. I really need to talk to you. It's urgent." He glanced up then, his eyes kind but distracted. "Can it wait? I have a meeting soon." Before she could press, Yoko swept in, her silk robe flowing like a queen's train, her makeup already flawless. She shot Aisha a look, that subtle glare, the kind that said, "Know your place," without a word. "Darling, don't let the help bother you with nonsense," Yoko purred, sliding into her seat and reaching for the fruit bowl. Aisha's stomach twisted, but she held her tongue, retreating to the sink where the warm water on her hands couldn't wash away the chill of dismissal. The tension simmered through the morning, building like steam in a pot. By afternoon, Kenji hosted a small lunch for business partners in the villa's elegant dining room, the table set with porcelain plates and fresh orchids from the market. Aisha moved silently, refilling water glasses and clearing dishes, her presence as invisible as she could make it. But Yoko, ever the hostess, couldn't resist. As Aisha leaned in to serve a plate of sashimi, Yoko's voice cut through the polite chatter. "Careful, everyone. Our maid here is a bit uncoordinated. Wouldn't want her dropping anything on your laps." The words were laced with mock sweetness, but the intent was clear. A verbal jab, subtle yet stinging, drawing a few awkward chuckles from the guests. Aisha felt eyes on her, appraising, judging. Her cheeks burned, but she smiled faintly, murmuring an apology she didn't owe. It escalated from there, as if Yoko sensed Aisha's growing resolve and decided to crush it. One guest, a stern-faced executive with a neatly trimmed beard, asked innocently about the household staff. Yoko leaned in conspiratorially. "Oh, she's from Africa. Nigeria, I think. Exotic, right? But you know how it is. They're not always the most reliable." The room fell into whispers then, fingers pointing discreetly at Aisha as she stood by the sideboard. "Look at her hair," someone murmured. "So wild and out of place here." Laughter bubbled up, soft at first, then bolder, a public mockery that wrapped around Aisha like thorns. She gripped the edge of the tablecloth, her nails digging in, inner anger flaring hot. Why did her braids, woven with care each week, become a target? Fear mingled with it, the fear of speaking out and losing everything. But dignity whispered back, "Stand tall, Aisha. You're more than their words." Yoko wasn't satisfied. As Aisha passed with a pitcher of iced tea, Yoko accidentally knocked her arm, sending the cold liquid splashing across Aisha's front. No, it wasn't accidental. The shove was deliberate, a direct attack masked as clumsiness. The tea soaked through her dress, chilling her skin, the sticky sweetness clinging like humiliation itself. "Oh dear," Yoko exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "How careless of you! Go clean yourself up before you embarrass us further." The guests stared, some laughing outright, others whispering behind hands. Aisha stood there, dripping, the room's air conditioning amplifying the cold, her heart pounding with a mix of rage and shame. It was total humiliation, public and pointed, designed to break her. She wanted to scream, to hurl the pitcher back, but resilience held her. With a deep breath, she excused herself quietly, retreating to the bathroom where hot tears mixed with the water as she dabbed at her clothes. In the mirror, her reflection stared back, Strong jaw, deep brown eyes that had seen worse hardships back home. "This isn't you," she whispered to herself. "You're here for a reason." Word of the incident seemed to embolden Yoko further. The next day, at Kenji's office in the heart of Tokyo's business district, a sleek high-rise with glass walls overlooking the bustling streets below, Aisha was sent to deliver important documents. The elevator ride up felt endless, the soft ding at each floor like a countdown to confrontation. Kenji had asked her personally, a small trust that warmed her, but Yoko insisted on tagging along, claiming she had errands nearby. As Aisha handed the folder to Kenji in his corner office, the cityscape a dizzying backdrop through the windows, Yoko hovered like a shadow. "Is that all?" Kenji asked kindly. Aisha nodded, but seized the moment. "Sir, please, just a minute alone." Yoko interrupted with a scoff. "Alone? With my husband? How inappropriate." Her voice rose, drawing attention from nearby cubicles. Then came the accusation, sharp and unfounded. "Wait, what's that in your bag? Are you stealing office supplies? Typical thief behavior from your kind." The words were explicit, cutting deep. Your kind, implying all black people, all Africans, were criminals. Aisha's bag was open on the desk, innocent contents spilling out, a water bottle, her phone, but Yoko grabbed it, rummaging publicly. "Security!" she called, her tone dramatic. Two guards appeared swiftly, their uniforms crisp, faces impassive. They manhandled Aisha without question, one gripping her arm roughly, the other blocking her path. "Ma'am, step back," one barked, shoving her against the wall, a direct attack that bruised her shoulder. Colleagues gathered, whispering, pointing, their mockery a chorus. "Should have known. Foreigners always causing trouble." Aisha's fear spiked, her mind flashing to stories of deportations, but dignity surged. "I haven't done anything," she said firmly, voice steady despite the tremble. Kenji intervened mildly. "Yoko, this is unnecessary." But the damage was done. Humiliated, belongings scattered, Aisha was escorted out, the elevator descent a blur of shame. Back at the villa, the isolation gnawed at her. She paced the garden, the gravel crunching underfoot, the koi fish gliding serenely in their pond, a stark contrast to her storm. Inner turmoil raged, anger at Yoko's cruelty, fear for Kenji's life, and a resilient spark that refused to dim. How could she expose this without proof? That evening, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, dusty relics from Hiroshi's travels, Aisha stumbled upon a hint, a mysterious clue that shifted everything. Tucked in a leather-bound journal was a faded letter, yellowed with age, addressed to her mother in Nigeria. Hiroshi's handwriting, elegant and precise. "My dear, our time was brief, but the child. If ever she needs me, know I care." A child? Aisha's breath caught, her fingers tracing the words. Could it be? The implication hung heavy. A secret connection. Perhaps blood ties she never knew. It was a twist in the making, a hidden truth about her background that could change the game. But who to trust with this? As if summoned by fate, her phone buzzed. A withheld number. "Aisha, this is Mr. Sato, Hiroshi Tanaka's old lawyer. I have information you might need." His voice was gravelly, cautious. They met discreetly the next day at a quiet cafe near Shibuya Crossing, the world's busiest intersection a chaotic blur outside the window. Sato, an elderly man with wire-rimmed glasses and a worn briefcase, slid a folder across the table. "Hiroshi left instructions. If trouble arose with the family, contact you. There's evidence of Yoko's dealings, forged documents, suspicious transfers." Aisha's eyes widened, relief flooding her. Here was an ally, hidden in the shadows, offering a lifeline. Why me? She asked. Sato smiled faintly. He spoke of you often, like family. The words bolstered her resilience, a brief moment of solidarity amid the hostility. Armed with this, she felt a surge of hope, but the danger loomed larger. The escalation peaked a few days later at Tokyo Station, the massive hub alive with the rush of commuters, announcements blaring overhead, the metallic scent of trains mixing with street food vendors' aromas. Aisha was there to pick up a package for Kenji, but Yoko had followed, paranoia evident. In the crowded platform, bodies pressing in under the fluorescent lights, Yoko confronted her. I know you're plotting something, you sneaky black witch. The insult was hurled loudly, drawing stares, verbal barbs turning to public spectacle. Subtle looks from passers-by evolved into open mockery. What's going on? Look at her, causing a scene. Yoko shoved Aisha hard then, a direct attack that sent her stumbling into the crowd. Help! This woman is harassing me! She screamed. Chaos erupted. Security guards swarmed, their grips rough as they blocked Aisha, one slapping handcuffs on her wrists unfairly, the cold metal biting into her skin, a symbolic chains of injustice. You're coming with us, they growled, searching her bags publicly, belongings dumped on the platform for all to see. The crowd gathered, laughing, pointing, filming with phones, a total humiliation that crushed her spirit momentarily. Filthy immigrant! Someone jeered. Aisha's fear crested, tears pricking her eyes, but resilience shone through. I'm innocent, she declared, head high. Kenji arrived then, alerted by a call, his face pale. What's this? But Yoko spun her tale, eyes triumphant. Back home that night, the villa silent except for the tick of a clock, Aisha nursed her bruises in her room. The lawyer's folder hidden under her mattress, the letters secret burning in her mind. She couldn't wait any longer. Creeping to Kenji's study, where he worked late under the desk lamp's warm pool, she approached. Sir, you have to listen. He looked up, weary. In a surge of impulse, driven by desperation, Aisha leaned in and kissed him, not out of romance, but to provoke, to shatter the facade. It was brief, shocking, her lips pressing against his in a calculated act. Kenji pulled back, stunned. Aisha, what? The door flew open. Yoko stood there, face contorted in fury. You dare touch my husband, you dirty black whore! Her scream pierced the air, hand raised as if to strike. She fumbled for her phone, dialing frantically. Police! Now! The room fell into sudden silence, the cliffhanger of confrontation hanging like a blade, the truth teetering on the edge of revelation. As the seconds stretched, Aisha's heart hammered, her bold move setting off a chain she couldn't stop. Yoko's rage boiled over, her composure cracking for the first time. How could you let this happen, Kenji? This animal seducing you. The insults flew faster now, explicit and venomous, but Aisha stood firm, her eyes locked on Kenji. It's not what you think, she said calmly. I did it to make her reveal herself. Kenji's confusion deepened, but Yoko's reaction was telling. Her hands shook, color draining from her face. The police sirens wailed in the distance, an ominous soundtrack to the unfolding drama. Aisha glanced at the hidden folder in her mind, the lawyer's words echoing. Proof was near. Yet fear gnawed. Would this backfire, sealing her fate? The officers arrived swiftly, their boots thudding on the marble floor, flashlights cutting through the dim hall. Yoko pointed accusingly. Arrest her! She assaulted my husband! The guards, different from the station ones but equally stern, moved toward Aisha, one grabbing her arm again, the familiar roughness igniting her anger. But Kenji stepped in. Wait. Let's hear her out. It was a small victory, a crack in the wall. As they questioned her, Aisha's inner resilience shone, her voice steady as she hinted at the plot without full reveal. "Check her phone. Her messages." Yoko snarled, "Lies from a jealous servant." The tension thickened, the air heavy with unspoken secrets. In the ensuing hours, confined to the living room under watch, Aisha reflected on her journey, the subtle discriminations that had built to this crescendo. From glances on trains to outright attacks, each had tested her, forging her strength. A brief call to Sato, whispered in a moment alone, assured her, "Evidence is coming." Solidarity from an unexpected source. But as dawn approached, Yoko's whispers to the police grew frantic, the cliffhanger unresolved, silence falling like a curtain over the villa. The silence in the study was deafening, broken only by Yoko's ragged breathing and the distant wail of sirens growing louder, like a storm approaching the villa's serene facade. Aisha stood there, her lips still tingling from the impulsive kiss, her heart a wild drumbeat echoing the chaos she'd unleashed. Kenji stared at her, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal, his hand absently touching his mouth as if to erase the moment. "Aisha, why?" he whispered, his voice cracking under the weight of it all. Yoko, trembling with rage, clutched her phone like a weapon, her elegant nails digging into the case. "She's a manipulator, Kenji. A seductress trying to steal you from me. The police will handle this trash." Her words were venomous, spat with such force that spittle flecked the air, but beneath the fury, Aisha saw it, a flicker of panic in Yoko's eyes, the first crack in her polished armor. The officers burst through the front door moments later, their footsteps heavy on the marble floors, radios crackling with static that cut through the tension like knives. Two of them, uniformed and stern, with badges glinting under the hallway lights, assessed the scene quickly. "We received a call about an assault," the lead officer said, his tone clipped and professional, eyes darting between the three of them. Yoko pointed a manicured finger at Aisha, her voice rising to a hysterical pitch. "Yes, this woman, this black intruder, kissed my husband without consent. She's been harassing us for months. Arrest her!" The accusation hung heavy, twisting the air, and Aisha felt the familiar sting of injustice, her wrists still raw from the earlier handcuffs at the station. But this time, something shifted inside her. No more cowering. Resilience, forged in the fires of every insult and shove, straightened her spine. "It's not what it seems," she said calmly, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her edges. "I did it to protect him. Check her phone. There's proof of what she's planning." Kenji held up a hand, his face paling as he turned to Yoko. "What is she talking about?" The officers hesitated, one reaching for his notebook, the other eyeing Yoko suspiciously. That's when the twist unraveled, swift and devastating, like a thread pulled from a tapestry. Yoko's composure shattered. She lunged forward, not at Aisha, but at Kenji's desk, scrambling for something. A small vial hidden in a drawer, perhaps, or papers she'd forged. In her frenzy, she knocked over a lamp, the crash echoing through the room, shards of glass scattering like broken promises under the dim glow. "You idiot!" she snarled at Kenji, her mask fully slipping. "I've been patient, but if this filthy servant thinks she can ruin everything... Yes, I was going to get rid of you. The poison was ready, the will changed. You and your father's pathetic legacy, it's mine now." The confession spilled out, raw and unfiltered, triggered by the kiss that had pushed her over the edge. Officers froze, then moved in unison, one grabbing Yoko's arms as she flailed, the other radioing for backup. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for conspiracy to murder," he said, the handcuffs clicking shut with a finality that mirrored the irony. Aisha's earlier wrongful restraint now visited upon the true culprit. Aisha watched, her breath catching, as the emotional payoff began to unfold. Kenji staggered back, collapsing into his chair, the leather creaking under him. His world, so carefully constructed, lay in ruins around him. The loving wife revealed as a schemer, the home tainted by betrayal. But in that wreckage, a new light emerged. "How did you know?" he asked Aisha, his voice hoarse. She reached into her pocket, pulling out the faded letter from Hiroshi's journal, her fingers trembling slightly as she handed it over. "Your father. He wasn't just kind to my mother. He was more. This letter, it's proof. I'm his daughter, from a time he spent in Africa. Your half-sister." The words hung there, a hidden status revealed, a secret that tied her to the family not as a servant, but as blood. Kenji's eyes widened, scanning the handwriting he knew so well, the dates aligning with trips he'd heard about in childhood stories. Father mentioned a special connection overseas. I never imagined. Tears welled in his eyes, not of sorrow, but of a profound recognition. He stood, pulling Aisha into a tentative embrace, the scent of his cologne mixing with the faint dust from the letter. A brotherly hug that reclaimed her dignity in an instant. The injustices resolved one by one, like knots unraveling in a rope. Yoko was led away in cuffs, her screams echoing down the hall. "You'll regret this, you black witch!" But they fell flat, powerless now. The officers, after reviewing the lawyer Sato's folder that Aisha had retrieved from her room, confirmed the evidence. Forged signatures on the will, bank transfers to a lover's account, even receipts for the poison disguised as vitamins. Kenji, regaining his composure, addressed the staff who'd gathered in the foyer, drawn by the commotion. "Aisha has been more than an employee. She's family. And she saved us all." Public recognition rippled through the room, the same people who'd whispered and laughed now nodding with respect, one even offering a quiet apology. Aisha felt the weight lift, her shoulders lighter, the humiliation of spilled tea and public searches fading into memory. In the garden the next morning, under the soft sunlight filtering through cherry leaves, Kenji sat with her on a stone bench, the koi pond murmuring peacefully. "I should have seen it sooner," he said, handing her a key to the villa. "You're not just staying, you're part of this. Help me protect Father's legacy." It was heartfelt solidarity, a positive shift that turned her from outsider to guardian. As days turned to weeks, the hopeful ending blossomed. Yoko faced trial, her consequences swift. Imprisonment for her crimes, her lover abandoning her in the scandal that splashed across Tokyo tabloids. Aisha, now Kenji's assistant and acknowledged sister, walked the city streets with newfound confidence. The stares that once wounded now met with her steady gaze. She visited the immigration office not in fear, but to formalize her status, the paperwork gliding through with Kenji's support. Brief moments of humanity dotted her path. A neighbor who'd once ignored her now waved hello, a shopkeeper apologizing for past suspicions. The moral shone through the outcome, resilience in the face of discrimination breeding respect and equality, her strength turning whispers into alliances, mockery into admiration. In the quiet evenings, Aisha would stand on the balcony, the city lights twinkling like stars, feeling the dignity she'd reclaimed wrap around her like a warm shawl. No lectures needed. The story spoke for itself, a testament to holding on to hope when the world pushes back. And you know, friends, that's the beauty of it all. Our unspoken bonds and unyielding spirits can turn even the darkest nights into dawn. What do you think? Share your own stories of overcoming in the comments below, hit that like button if this touched your heart, and subscribe for more tales that remind us we're all in this together. But let's linger a bit longer on that balcony with Aisha, because her journey didn't end with the arrest or the revelation. It evolved. Kenji, grappling with the betrayal, leaned on her more each day, sharing meals where laughter replaced tension. The aroma of Nigerian jollof rice blending with Japanese sushi in a fusion of cultures. "Teach me about your home," he'd say, and she'd recount stories of Lagos markets bustling with color, the rhythmic beats of Afrobeat music that now played softly in the villa's halls. It was equality in action, her voice no longer dismissed but valued, her ideas shaping decisions on the family business. One afternoon, in the study where it all began, Kenji pulled out old photo albums, dusty pages revealing Hiroshi's travels. There, amid snapshots of African landscapes, was a picture of a young woman, Aisha's mother, smiling beside him, a connection frozen in time. "He would be proud," Kenji murmured, a tear tracing his cheek. Aisha nodded, her own eyes misty, the emotional tie binding them tighter. The antagonist's fall brought further justice. Yoko's trial unfolded in a stark courtroom, the fluorescent lights harsh on her once glamorous face, as witnesses, including the lawyer Sato, detailed her schemes. Sentenced to years behind bars, she glanced at Aisha during the verdict, her eyes filled with regret too late to matter. It was a narrative payoff that satisfied, the scales tipping toward fairness. Aisha, testifying with poise, felt no glee, only closure, her resilience a quiet force that had dismantled the web of deceit. Publicly, the story spread through whispers in Shibuya cafes and online forums, inspiring others. Aisha received messages from fellow expats, sharing their own battles with discrimination, finding solace in her triumph. One evening at a small gathering Kenji hosted to celebrate the company's recovery, guests who'd once mocked her now approached with genuine curiosity. "Your strength is admirable," one said, extending a hand. It was heartfelt solidarity, a ripple effect of respect that extended beyond the villa walls. As autumn leaves fell like confetti outside, Aisha stood in the Zen garden, raking patterns in the sand, a meditative act that mirrored her inner peace. The cool breeze carried hints of rain, the same that had stormed through her trials, now a gentle reminder of growth. Kenji joined her, placing a family heirloom necklace around her neck, the beaded one from her village intertwined with a Japanese pendant. "Welcome home, sister." The words sealed it, dignity fully restored, hope blooming like the cherry blossoms to come. And in those quiet moments, the lesson crystallized through lived experience. When faced with injustice, holding on to your truth can forge paths to equality, turning adversaries into lessons and isolation into belonging. No need for grand speeches. Aisha's life was the proof, a beacon for anyone watching from afar. Friends, if you've stuck with me through this tale, you know it's more than a story. It's a mirror to our world. Let's carry that spirit forward. Drop your thoughts below, give it a thumbs up, and hit subscribe so we can explore more journeys of heart and humanity together. Yet even as the credits might roll in our minds, Aisha's new chapter unfolded vibrantly. She took on more responsibilities, her insights from a different culture innovating Kenji's tech firm, ideas for inclusive AI that detected bias, drawing from her own experiences. Colleagues, once distant, now sought her advice, the office buzzing with a diversity that hadn't existed before. One day, walking through Tokyo Station, the site of her deepest humiliation, she noticed the crowds parting not in suspicion, but with neutral ease, her presence normalized. A young black tourist approached her, wide-eyed. "I saw your story online. Thank you for showing it's possible." It was public recognition, organic and uplifting, reinforcing the equality she'd fought for. Yoko's consequences extended, her assets frozen, her social circle evaporated, leaving her to reflect in solitude. Kenji, healing, found peace in rebuilding, his bond with Aisha the anchor. They visited Hiroshi's grave together, under a canopy of maples turning red, laying flowers and sharing memories. "He saved my mother," Aisha said softly. "And you saved me," Kenji replied. The wind whispered through the leaves, a sensory embrace of closure. In the end, Aisha's resilience painted a portrait of hope, Discrimination's shadows dispelled by dignity's light, equality emerging not as a gift, but as a hard-won right. And that's the thread that weaves us all. In standing firm, we invite the world to stand with us. What resonates with you most? Comment, like, and subscribe. Let's keep the conversation going. But wait, let's dive a little deeper into those transformative weeks that followed, because Aisha's victory wasn't just a single moment. It was a series of small triumphs that built her new life brick by brick. Picture her in the villa's library, surrounded by shelves of Hiroshi's old books, their leather bindings worn from years of wisdom. Kenji would join her there in the evenings, the room lit by a soft golden lamp that cast warm shadows on the walls, and they'd pore over family documents together. "This clause here," Aisha pointed out one night, her finger tracing lines in an ancient will. "It protects the estate from outsiders. We can use it to secure everything." Kenji nodded, impressed, his initial shock giving way to admiration. "You've got father's eye for details," he said, and in that compliment, Aisha felt a surge of belonging, her contributions no longer overshadowed by her skin color or status. The emotional layers peeled back further during a quiet family dinner. Not the tense affairs of before, but a genuine one, with candles flickering on the table and the aroma of spiced stew wafting from the kitchen. Aisha had cooked a blend of Nigerian and Japanese flavors, egusi soup alongside miso-glazed fish, symbolizing the harmony she'd helped restore. As they ate, Kenji opened up about his own regrets. "I was blind to Yoko's cruelty toward you. The subtle digs, the way she isolated you. I should have intervened." Aisha placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle. "We all have blind spots. What matters is seeing clearly now." It was a moment of raw vulnerability, tears shared over dessert, strengthening their sibling bond and underscoring the theme of forgiveness amid justice. Outside the home, Aisha's influence rippled wider. She started volunteering at a local community center for expats in Tokyo, a modest building tucked amid the high-rises, where fluorescent lights buzzed over group sessions. Sharing her story in a circle of diverse faces, African, Latin American, Southeast Asian, she inspired others to speak up against discrimination. "I was shoved, mocked, accused," she'd say, her voice steady. "But I held my dignity like a shield. You can too." Applause followed, and one woman, a young Filipina facing workplace bias, hugged her afterward. "Your resilience gives me hope." These interactions were pockets of solidarity, turning Aisha's personal win into a communal uplift, proving that one person's strength can ignite change in many. Even the city itself seemed to shift around her. On a crisp morning walk through Yoyogi Park, leaves crunching underfoot and joggers passing with nods instead of stares, Aisha reflected on her growth. The same paths where she'd once felt invisible now felt welcoming, her steps confident. She stopped at a bench, pulling out her phone to message her mother back in Nigeria. The call filled with joy, descriptions of her new role and promises of a visit. "You've made us proud, child," her mother said, voice crackling over the line. It was the final emotional thread, weaving home and adopted family together. Through it all, the moral echoed silently. True equality blooms from resilience, transforming pain into purpose and division into unity. Aisha's tale wasn't just survival, it was rebirth,